Who are we talking to?
Ourselves.
Welcome back to the Mc&Marren podcast in Justice League June, part 2 of Superman.
We're going to be talking about Superman Returns and the Snyderverse Superman movies.
Unfortunately, Tori could not make it tonight due to extenuating circumstances, and it also was really bad for the Snyderverse because she was the one positive voice.
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting to talk about two people that are negatively about the Snyderverse, and then, so we'll see what happens. Alright, so like Colin said, we're going to be talking about part 2 of the Superman movies. So the first one we're going to be talking about is actually a in-between movie between the Christopher Reeve era and the Snyder era. In other words, we're going to be talking about Superman Returns. So Superman Returns was released in 2006. It was 19 years after Superman 4, so we had about almost 20 years before a Superman film.
Enough time for most people who weren't really into to forget that the 4 Superman movies existed.
Yes. This movie was directed by Bryan Singer, who before this movie was actually responsible for directing the first 2 X-Men films. Freeze apparently has a lot to say about that. He actually did not direct X3's X-Men United because of this film. And similar to The Incredible Hulk in the MCU, this was a pseudo-sequel slash reboot slash something, because it ignores the events of Superman 3 and Superman 4 and is a sequel slash reboot after Superman 2.
Kind of like how Jurassic World was a sequel that kind of ignored the other 2 sequels of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
It gets confusing.
Yes. So in Superman Returns, we have Brandon Routh starring as Clark Kent slash Superman, Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane, and Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor this time. Obviously, we couldn't have the same cast, but that's okay. Although it was one of the highest grossing films of the year, making about $391.1 million, Warner Brothers wasn't satisfied with the box office, and so they scrapped the planned sequel and rebooted it again for the DCEU with Man of Steel in 2013. Which, I mean, I guess I kind of see it, but they still made over almost $400 million, so I don't see how that is a failure.
I don't get it either. I guess when you're, like, really well off, even triple digits in the millions isn't good enough somehow.
Well, I mean, I guess Warner Brothers was kind of starting what they are now. They're not really satisfied with anything unless it's making over $1 billion, so whatever. Alright, so the plot of Superman Returns is, ironically enough, Superman returns to Earth after being missing for about 5 years. Apparently, the explanation in the movie was that their scientists discovered possible remains of Krypton, so Superman flew out to figure out what was happening, and that took him 5 years. And then when he returns to Earth, he finds out that Lois not only has a son, but is engaged to another man, who is actually Perry White's nephew. His name is Richard. Lois actually also won a Pulitzer Prize for an article she wrote in his absence called "Why the World Doesn't Need Superman." This is basically just, she wrote it when she was angry that Superman left.
Fair, but also it's like with Jurassic World whenever they say no one really cares about dinosaurs anymore. If we didn't care, we wouldn't be in the theater, okay? Get over yourself.
Well, what's funny is that, after Superman makes his big grand entrance of returning, Perry White essentially is just like every single section of the newspaper, it's all about Superman. So it's like, yeah, we actually do need a Superman, and Superman is actually pretty famous. So at the same time as all this is happening, Lex Luthor was released from prison. He didn't escape this time. He was released. but somehow finds the Fortress of Solitude, steals Krypton's crystal technology from the fortress, and upon discovering how the crystals interact with water, when the crystals interact with water, they expand exponentially. So Lex Luthor, along with some stolen kryptonite from the American Natural History Museum, combines the kryptonite with the crystals stolen from the fortress and plans to create a whole new landmass on the west coast that will destroy the whole western part of the United States, kill millions of people, but yet somehow make him a new real estate magnate. Magnate, whatever.
It's a weird word. But also, I don't know, Lex. This is pushing it a bit.
Yeah, it's like you kind of had this plot in the first Superman movie, and you're trying it yet again.
And also, just if everyone's dead, who's gonna buy our stuff?
The survivors of the land. I don't know. Ultimately, Superman defeats Lex Luthor by throwing the landmass into space, and it is revealed that Lois's son, whose name is Jason, is actually Clark's, because they have similar powers. And in the movie, Lois Lane and her son are being held hostage, and he actually shoves a piano towards Superman's or one of Lex Luthor's henchmen.
That's. I'm picturing Perry White try and be cute with the little boy, and then the little boy just punches a hole in the wall. This one's not mine.
I can just imagine it to be like a scene from Hercules where it's like, it's like, hey, do, and he grabs his finger and he just, hey, yeesh. Powerful little tyke. So, Superman Returns, in my opinion, was actually not that bad. I think the problem is, it's like, Brandon Routh was actually pretty good as Clark Kent. He captured the mannerisms pretty well, and he had some good scenes as Superman, but now this is not Brandon Routh's fault in any way, shape, or form. He just didn't carry the same confidence as Christopher Reeve as Superman. Which, I mean, to be honest, it's kind of a tough act to follow. The dude was made, he was Superman for almost 15 years, and he had 4 movies starring as Superman, so it's like, that's kind of tough for anyone to really follow.
It's like with Robin Williams as Genie.
Yeah.
It's like, once Robin had the role, it's really hard to I don't know who they got to voice in the second one. But it did not work out.
Dan Castellaneta. He was the same voice as Homer Simpson.
And Will Smith, he tried.
But
still, you can't follow that act.
No. And it's just like, when Will Smith was the Genie, it's like, it would have been better if he did his version of the Genie, not trying to do what Robin Williams did with the Genie.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey was actually a pretty good replacement for Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. I mean, he carried the weight of it pretty good. Although now looking back, it's just kind of just like, it was a little silly. And just overall, while the film wasn't bad, I just felt like they tried to capture the same magic as like the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. And instead of trying to tell its own story, and it basically was trying to get back to the status quo.
Which is really hard to do after 20 years of nothing.
Yeah, it's like you can't bring up new fans because no one is, if they haven't seen the first 4 movies, then you have no idea what's happening. And then with the guys who actually saw the previous 4 films, all they're going to be doing is just comparing it to Christopher Reeve. And
also, that title does not help.
No.
Because you hear Superman Returns, like, oh, the sequel to... Wait, I didn't see when the first one come out?
Yeah, so it's like...
Over 20 years ago!
Mm-hmm. They really should have just done their own thing. And, maybe some callbacks to the first Superman movie, if that's the case, but... You know, it's like we talked about this a little bit last time, where it's just like there are other villains in Superman's Rogues Gallery you could have used instead of just having Lex Luthor again with a land development scheme again, and just Superman moping and about not being in love with Lois Lane again. So it's just like we could have had something different, but nope, we didn't do anything different.
Also, it's just that whole thing of like, okay, Lex is a good character. Not a good person, a good character.
He's a good supervillain.
But branch out a bit and also give us a better reason for why he's only been locked up for 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the list of every crime Lex Luthor has ever committed, but I'm pretty sure it's long.
Yeah. I mean, if they're going off of the events of the first two movies, I mean, hijacking a military missile strike, I think that's grounds for, domestic terrorism and breaking a lot of federal laws, and that seems to be locking up for a lot longer than 5 years.
Although he is rich.
He is very rich, and he knows people, so it's actually a
Corruption
joke.
abounds.
It's actually a joke in the Justice League animated show where it's just like, how often does Lex Luthor get out of jail? He knows essentially the prison staff by name.
Yeah, well, so does the Joker. So does everyone who goes to Arkham.
Well, the Joker knows everybody by name, but he intends on killing everybody, so...
Yeah.
Anyway. So, do you have any other thoughts about Superman Returns?
It's... With the whole, Superman Returns and all the news is about him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a problem I have with Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man as a character, and I love his stories. All versions of Spider-Man. But something more has to be going on in this city other than the one weirdo in the cape. Okay?
Yeah. Well, I think that was what Lois Lane essentially... Even though she was just really angry at Superman for leaving her and everything, that was the point she's trying to make. It's just like, besides Superman coming back, there are other things that are happening in Metropolis.
Really? Like what?
But that is the ultimate question. It's like, really? Like
Crickets.
what? Yeah. So, alright. So, let's get into the meat of this episode, and we're going to be talking about the DCEU and the Snyder era of the Superman movies.
With Man of Steel, and that was a choice of naming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's accurate. But
It's one of Superman's names, so it kind of makes sense.
But if you're a person who's never touched a comic book,
Mm-hmm.
if you know nothing about Superman, you're like, oh, I'd like to see one of those Superman movies. You see Man of Steel? That doesn't sound like Superman.
No, it kind of sounds like a other...
Iron Man.
Yeah, it does sound like Iron Man, or like a Iron Man ripoff. So, fun facts about Man of Steel before we get into it. So, Warner Brothers took several pitches from several people, including writers from DC Comics at the time, including Grant Morrison, Mark Waid, Jeff Johns, and Brett Meltzer. For those of you that are comic book fans, a lot of those names should sound familiar to you. Grant Morrison actually wrote one of the highly regarded and, in my opinion, one of the best Superman stories ever written, All-Star Superman. Mark Waid wrote several stories for DC Comics, including the critically acclaimed 52 miniseries, which, for those of you who don't know, 52 was a weekly series that DC Comics wrote after the events of Infinite Crisis, where the DC Universe didn't have Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman for an entire year, and essentially the whole other roster of heroes had to pick up the slack. Jeff Johns is responsible for rebooting the Green Lantern books and wrote some of the best stories, including The Sinestro Corps War and Blackest Night. And Brad Meltzer, he's a little bit more divisive writer in the comic book community because he wrote the acclaimed at the time, but yet now it's divisive story called Identity Crisis, where the wife of the superhero Elongated Man was murdered, and it turns out that because she has several ties to several heroes in the DC universe, and a lot of their other family members were also targeted, so hence the name Identity Crisis. So ultimately, Zack Snyder was chosen to direct the film. For those of you that don't know, Zack Snyder also directed the 300 movie starring Gerard Butler and the Sin City movie. So he's really well known for comic book adaptations and is actually pretty good at it if given the right material. The film was actually also written by David S. Goyer, who wrote several superhero movies, including the Blade trilogy and the Dark Knight trilogy. So this had the makings of a good comic book movie. It starred Henry Cavill as Clark Kent and Superman, Amy Adams as Lois Lane, Michael Shannon as General Zod, Russell Crowe as Jor-El, Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent, Dan Lane as Martha Kent, and Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White. So, pretty stacked cast for what it was. But why did it not do so well? Let's get into it, shall we? But before we do that, so the main plot, well, part of the main plot is that...
Remember Superman 1?
Yeah, we're going to be starting that all over again, except with modern CGI and modern comic book writing. On Krypton, General Zod leads a coup d'etat against the High Council of Krypton, at the same time that Jor-El is pleading the High Council to evacuate the planet due to excessive mining of minerals at the planet's core. Zod wants Jor-El to join him due to their military past. However, Jor-El is killed in the coup d'etat, but his son is sent to Earth, and Zod and his followers are imprisoned in the Phantom Zone, and Krypton is destroyed at the same time. So this does sound very familiar to the plot of Superman 1.
It was a very busy day.
It was a very busy day for Krypton. On Earth, Kal-El arrives to Smallville, Kansas, and is adopted by Jonathan and Martha Kent, blah, 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 blah. However, we're going to be talking about a lot of negatives about Man of Steel here in a little bit, but one of the positives that I will say about Man of Steel is that they actually do have some flashbacks to young Clark Kent dealing with his powers as they develop. Like, for example, one scene, he's in school, and he's like probably about 7 or 8 years old, and his super hearing and X-ray division develop at the same time. So he is, he hears everything going on around him and sees the entire skeletal system of his classmates and his teacher. Obviously, he's overwhelmed by the noise and...
On top of everything else that's happening at that age.
Yeah.
Not helpful.
I mean, he freaks out, rightfully so, about what is happening to him, and hides in a janitor's closet and is only calmed down by his mom to tell him to focus on one thing at a time, not everything at once. Another flashback is him being pushed around by a bunch of bullies, and although you can see in his face that he wants to essentially beat these bullies in the next week, but he holds back, and it's only when the bullies walk away that we actually see that the fence he's holding onto is bent in half.
But talking about the super hearing and the thing reminds me of the animated show My Adventures with Superman. Came out a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the day he's getting his powers of hearing everything and zipping around everywhere, he goes, I can hear everyone, everything, all the time. And Jimmy, they've got problems. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, everybody has problems. So, and to be honest, I wish we got more of this, because a lot of times in comic books, and it's also in movies too, it's like...
You just kind of rush to...
It's like we get him arriving on Earth, and then all of a sudden he's an adult. With his powers fully realized and
We don't even delve into how he got his job.
Yeah.
At the Daily Planet. He just has it.
I mean, that's kind of what the series Smallville was about, and I actually really liked that. but that's again from him as a young man, like a high school student, all the way to adulthood. It's like we don't see him as like a little child to adulthood.
To put this into... Okay. I'm a Batman fan. And yes, we do the same thing every time we reboot the series. We have the little boy with his two parents. They die in the alleyway, and then boom. But we sprinkle in why. From that one night, that changed something in him, and he wanted to fight crime, make the world safer.
Yep.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense how you got from A to B. Now, do we need to know every single detail that got us along that route? No. But with Superman, we got alien, crash land on Earth, raised in Kansas, and he became a reporter. Why? How?
Yeah.
It's just like alien, farm kid, reporter.
Yeah, we don't really get as much in between. And I mean, to be honest, it would be kind of interesting to see like a vindictive, stubborn teenage version of Superman. I mean, with Superman's stories, it's like we either see him as, I think you were saying this last time, where it's like he's naive,
too naive or too serious.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's not what the human experience is about. It's like, when you're a teenager, you're not the same person you were as you're not the same person as a teenager as you are an adult. It's like, when you're a teenager, you have all those hormones running through you. You're angry, you're upset, you're jealous, vindictive, you're happy, you're sad, all at the same time.
And you're dealing with everyone else who's also doing all of that.
Yeah, and then if you want to throw in the fact that you're also dealing with powers that you don't understand why you have them and why it's happening, that actually would make a pretty interesting story. But yet, for whatever reason, writers don't want to show that.
It would be interesting if you had like a Devil Wears Prada kind of thing following Superman trying to get his first actual job as a writer.
Yeah.
While also being a superhero.
Yeah.
Just like the superhero thing, that's not the main story.
The main thing is he needs a job.
I was like, yes, he could absolutely rob the bank. No one could stop him.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not who he is. So He's got to make a living.
Yeah. However, there is a little bit of controversy with these flashbacks. The most controversial one is actually shown in the trailer for Man of Steel. It's when, I think around the same age, like maybe 10 or 11 years old, Clark's school bus careens off a bridge into a river where he and several children are drowning. But he is able to get out and pull the bus to shore. And the only person that sees him do it is a classmate, and they mention it briefly in the movie, Lana Lang. For those of you who don't know, Lana Lang was Superman's first love back in Smallville before he was in Metropolis.
You think he's got a thing for double L's?
I think so. But then this also could be just lazy writing.
Lana Lang,
Lois Lane. They just he also had a dalliance with Wonder Woman in there. Oh, if you really want to get really weird, in Superboy's story, this was Superman growing up, he apparently had a romance with a mermaid.
Sure, why not?
Sure. Comic books, ladies and gentlemen.
What did Aquaman think of that?
I mean, I don't know. But they're discussing this with his parents, and Jonathan goes out to talk to him. And now, Jonathan in this movie is a little different from previous iterations because he actually does not want Clark to show off any of his powers. Like, he wants to keep them a secret. He thinks that the world won't accept him and see him as a threat and lock him up, and that's what he doesn't want, and that's why he doesn't want Clark to show off any of his powers, even if it means helping people. Which leads to this dialogue when Jonathan says, "You have to keep this side of yourself a secret." And Clark says, what was I supposed to do? Just let him die? And then he says, "Maybe."
Yeah, that's not John Kent.
No. Now, while the trailer does cut out, he does go into more detail about it later on in the scene, but yeah, that's a very pessimistic view for Jonathan Kent to have. And it's just like, it's kind of jarring going from a man who essentially tells Clark, you know, you do what's right because it's right, and regardless of the powers you have, you can either be a moral man with a decent moral compass, or you can be a god with unchecked power. And Superman is a good man with godlike abilities, but he decides to use those godlike abilities to help people because of the morals and values that were instilled in him by his parents, by his Earth parents. So, also, there's another really ridiculous scene involving Jonathan Kent in this movie. So, in the previous iterations of the story, Jonathan Kent dies of a heart attack, which is a very human way to die, and actually is very imperative for Superman's story, at least in my opinion, because it shows that no matter how much power you have, no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to save everyone. And that's what his dad's death tells him, was that you can't save everyone regardless of whether or not you try. However, in this story, in the flashback sequence, Martha, Jonathan, Kent, and Clark, as well as their family dog, are in a car. They're having an argument, and there's all of a sudden a tornado happening in front of them. People are running off trying to avoid the tornado because they're stuck in a traffic jam. However, the family dog is stuck in the car, so Jonathan rushes back to save the dog. But in doing so, he gets caught in the tornado. Now, Clark, obviously, because he has super speed and super strength, he can run and save his father from the tornado, and none will be none the wiser. However, Jonathan stops him, and he dies by being swept up by the tornado as Clark watches.
Which is... No.
No, it's really stupid.
Okay, yes. Fathers are stubborn.
Yeah.
But no. First off, that's not how John Kent works.
Nope.
As a character. And two, even if John Kent said that, Superman would ignore him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He goes like, no. You are going over here.
Yeah. It's like, Superman's not an idiot. He knows exactly how his powers work and how to use them, so it's like he could just basically like, oh, Dad's over there.
But I don't know what you're talking about. He's
yeah,
been
Dad,
with us the entire time.
Or like, Dad's always been here. No one will be none the wiser. But no, they had to kill him off for a really stupid reason.
And if it really gets bad, we could always rotate the Earth the other way.
Yeah, welcome to that plot hole.
I'm never gonna let that go.
Oh no, yeah, I love the first Superman movie, but yeah, that was a really stupid plot hole. Anyway, so just like Superman 2, the main villains for Man of Steel is Zod and his crew who escaped the Phantom Zone.
Like you do.
However, in this movie, what their plan is essentially use remnants of Krypton's fleet, which somehow survived the destruction of Krypton, sure, and essentially use them to terraform Earth into a new Krypton, where they would be the elite master race and humanity would be wiped out. However, a big plot point that Zod is going after Clark specifically is because before Jor-El dies and his son is sent off to Earth, he finds what's a thing called the Codex, which somehow has all the DNA of every single Kryptonian into it, and Jor-El somehow instills the Codex into Clark, making him the true last son of Krypton.
That was a lot to put on one kid.
Yeah.
That you just sent off into space and hoped it landed somewhere good.
Yeah. Well, it's like, one of Superman's things is called he's the last son of Krypton because up until this point,
Because every other Kryptonian is dead!
yes, we didn't know that there are other survivors of Krypton, so he's ergo the last son of Krypton. But that is really stretching it to make it to the point where he is the last son of Krypton.
Also, it's just... I don't know what the putting the codex in him means for his future children.
Yeah.
Is a very weird...
Yeah.
Also, in regards to Zod's plan of terraforming the Earth, the Earth is perfectly habitable as is.
Yeah.
They look human, so they can blend in just fine.
Yeah.
The sun isn't the same as their red sun, but that's good because here that means they're healthier.
And they get powers.
So I don't know what the whole terraforming thing is supposed to do.
I don't know.
And if you're going to say, well, we're going to take the codex and then clone everyone, that's not how cloning works. You don't get the same person back. You get a copy of the body back, but the person is gone.
Yeah. Again, it's just a really overcomplication of the story. Now, I will say, Michael Shannon actually did a pretty good job as General Zod. Like, he wasn't bad, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great either. But I did like the fact that, it took Zod and his crew a little while to actually start developing their powers and start using them against Superman.
To be fair, Superman's been on the Earth for over 18 years.
Over 18 years.
Just soaking in all of the
But
Sunny D.
yeah, but the fact
And they've just showed up.
But the fact of the matter is that when they actually start developing their powers, Zod is able to handle it faster than Clark did. Because if you really think about it, Zod is a soldier. He's a general. He's used to overcoming scenarios that a normal person wouldn't. So, like, Clark didn't have those people, so it's like he took him a long time developing his powers. But Zod, as a warrior, adapted to his new surroundings and essentially mastered his abilities faster than Clark ever did.
Okay.
I actually kind of like that detail.
That's all good, but one minor nitpick. How does being a soldier prepare you for having laser eyes? It's like, okay, maybe it prepares you for enhanced strength,
Flight.
and maybe flight. But what prepares you for laser vision?
Good point.
Is like, what are those weird? And also, how does Zod die?
Superman breaks his neck because Zod
Superman, Golden Boy.
kills someone.
Now, granted, he does not have a no-kill rule, I think. But he is very...
While he doesn't ultimately say, I don't kill people...
But he is very much... If it's possible, they're going to live.
Yeah. It's like, and to be fair, the only reason why he killed Zod was because he was using his laser vision to attempt to kill a family that was in distress.
Which is all well and good. Well, not good, but...
In terms of plot, it's all well and fine.
But there were so many other things you could have done to stop that.
Yeah.
Breaking his neck was one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's been memed into the ground already.
Oh, yeah.
But it paints this also with the earlier part of this movie, the focus on John's parenting skills, shall we say. It makes this Superman, this Man of Steel, very serious, which is not Superman.
No.
And that's the main problem I have with the whole thing.
Yeah. And kind of going off of that a little bit, so while the fight with Zod and Superman is actually really, really cool and, visually really, really stunning because, back in the 70s, it was really hard to get them to just even fly.
But now they're flying.
Now they're flying.
Punching each other. There's laser beams going off every which way.
So like the CGI,
excitement.
Yeah, the big battle is actually really well done. However, it is really kind of jarring that I didn't like the fact that Superman allowed the fight to continue so long against Zod in Metropolis, and pretty much half of Metropolis was destroyed by their battle. And like
as shown in Batman
and v Superman. And it's just like, you know, there wasn't even like so many people died from that battle, and Superman didn't seem to care. Like there was not even a scene where, you know, Superman was fighting Zod and there was like some people being trapped underneath rubble, and Superman didn't even go after to help them out.
Whereas, like, in all the animated shows, Superman goes out of his way to make sure that people are not injured, even if it's to his own detriment.
Yeah.
The only time I've seen a animated show where he actually let loose was when he was fighting in a fake city where there were actually no people.
Yeah. And
once he knew that...
Mm-hmm. Or when he took, like, in the Justice League episode where Darkseid was invading Earth, and he let off like the whole speech where it's like, I live in a world made of cardboard, always taking constant care not to break something, to break someone, not let myself go even for a moment, or else someone could die. And it's like, we don't see that Superman in Man of Steel. He doesn't even express any sort of... The only person he actually expresses regret for is Zod after he breaks his neck. But so you express regret for killing the bad guy, which, I mean, honestly, you should, because that's what Superman doesn't do. But...
Also, he was killing everybody.
Yeah, so it's like, you don't express regret for any innocent civilians that have died during your fight. That's not how Superman would act. So overall, long story being short, it's like, this is no disrespect to Henry Cavill, because Henry Cavill actually didn't do a bad job as Superman and Clark Kent.
Oh, he's a good Superman.
He's a good Superman and a good actor.
When he's given the writing.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. The writing did not give him the best stuff to work with. And that's essentially what the biggest problem was, is that this didn't feel like a Superman movie. It just felt like a generic superhero movie.
Which, as a Superman movie, it's good.
It was fine, yeah. But it wasn't
as a
Superman movie.
It's...
Alright, now let's get into...
The big, the bad, the terrible.
The terrible, the god-awful Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Gotta love how Batman got top billing.
Yes. Or in other words, why'd you say that name? Martha.
Now, let's not really go into too many facts about this one, because I think we want to pass it as quickly as possible. But going into Batman v Superman, I had one big problem. And that was, I don't know this Batman. Every single Batman is slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the best parts, seeing how different people portray Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, okay, this is the Man of Steel Superman.
Mm-hmm.
But then, who is that Superman going up against? I don't know. Apparently, no one at Warner Brothers thought, hey, maybe we should have an origin movie for Batman. No, wait, let's just make this the origin movie. But we'll get to that
later.
As for Superman in this...
Yeah. So, before we get into it, so Ben Affleck was cast as Bruce Wayne and Batman in this movie. We also see Jeremy Irons cast as Alfred Pennyworth, which, to be fair, Jeremy Irons actually
not a bad pick.
He was pretty good as Alfred. He got the sarcastic Alfred down. Spoilers, we also see the first appearance of Wonder Woman in this movie, who's played by Gal Gadot. Which, to be honest, they really should have saved that for as a surprise for the theatrical release instead of actually seeing her in the trailer.
And we'll get to why having Wonder Woman in this movie was a mistake.
Yes.
Even though she's a great character and good actress.
And probably the best part of the DCEU when we get right down to it, but that's a topic for another day. And then, the creme de la creme of the awful.
Alexander Luthor.
Played by Jesse Eisenberg.
No hate to Eisenberg. He's a good actor.
Again, he was not given the best writing to work with.
Yeah.
To understand why this performance was so bad, so they actually did release a image of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor before this movie was released. In it, he was actually bald. And honestly, he actually didn't look too bad as bald. And he was menacing. It was a black and white, like, mugshot photo. And it was just like, okay, he looks pretty serious. He looks very intimidating.
He looks a little young, but
yeah. I mean, it actually doesn't look too bad. And then the movie came out.
And he had
red hair. He played the character as a combination of Jim Carrey's Riddler from Batman Forever, and Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight, instead of Lex Luthor.
Two characters which Lex Luthor is not.
No. In fact, Lex Luthor actually hates the Joker sometimes because of how silly he can be. Ugh. And it's like, how bad? And it's like, if that wasn't bad enough, he actually makes it well known the fact that, he's the bad guy, because in the scene in the movie where they're having like a party and Clark Kent's reporting on her and Bruce Wayne makes an appearance, they're trading jabs to one another, and he's like, Bruce Wayne meets Clark Kent. Huh, I love it. I love bringing people together. How are we? Lex, hi, hello. Lex is a puncher. Oh, wow, that is great. You should not pick a fight with this person. You're not being subtle, Lex. We now know that you know who they are, and you're going to set them up to fight one another. The mystery is gone.
Also, let's talk about Lois in this. Lois was not very helpful.
She was barely in the movie.
No, but she pretended to be helpful.
Pretended.
She pretended, or her character was focused on investigating what was going on with Lex, which...
Fair enough.
Yeah, Lex is up to shady stuff all the time. But in the end, she finds out nothing of value.
No.
Gets captured.
And just has Superman save her. Now, there was...
It was a change having Superman and Lois already together.
Yeah. Now, there was a theory going around when this movie did come... After this movie came out and everyone got over the initial shock of it, that there was one possible theory that for Lex Luthor's behavior, that it was possible that he was exposed to a portion of the anti-life equation and thought that Superman was an agent of Darkseid, hence why he wanted Batman to take him out so easily. Which, I mean, it does kind of make sense, because towards the end and after Lex Luthor gets captured...
He's like writing on the walls like a weirdo.
Yeah, and he's just like, the bells are coming! They are coming! And it's just like, okay, you are setting up Darkseid's invasion. But then that is dropped for Justice League, which we'll talk about that briefly
also,
here.
Also, wasn't Brainiac there?
No. Brainiac was never mentioned.
Okay.
Now, my biggest problem with Batman v Superman is that the timeline of this universe doesn't make any sense. So, in this story, Batman has been retired for some years now. We don't know how long, but he's been retired. But he was active at one point, and then he was inactive for a while, and then now, due to Superman's presence, he is now coming back.
Which is a choice to have Batman retire.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know everything that's happened in the comics, but Batman is not one to retire.
Well, it's like,
He will die in the cape.
yeah. Well, it's like this film is taking, and then there's also like the media took a lot of screen time from this, talking about Superman's presence and Batman's return and all this other stuff. So it's like this film is taking a lot of references to The Dark Knight Returns, which is a alternate universe story where Batman comes out of retirement and actually does fight Superman. And then we also get a glimpse of a Robin costume where it says "Joke's on you, Batman." However, we don't know if this is Dick or Jason. It's probably Jason. But then he also has a bow staff, which Dick also used. So it's like we don't know which Robin this was. So it's like there's a lot of questions that.
So like, it's probably definitely Jason. So
probably
Jason's
Jason.
so. What that tells us that one, Jason's dead, which tells us that Dick is now Nightwing
Yes.
and is nowhere to be found.
Yep.
Tim might be around or just still being a weird stalker to Batman.
Yep.
We don't know. But it's very weird.
Yeah. Now,
just-
I will say though.
Where are my Robins?
Yeah, I will say though, the motivation they set up for Batman to essentially mistrust and hate Superman is actually not a bad one, because in the opening scene we actually see Bruce Wayne. He's actually in Metropolis. He's planning to do a meeting
At the end of Man of Steel.
at the end of Man of Steel, and he actually is witnessing the destruction of Clark and Zod's fight. And, you know, it's actually very well done. I thought that opening sequence was just like, boom, you're right in the action. I'm like, okay, you got the audience's attention. And to be honest, like, the whole destruction of the city is very reminiscent to 9/11. And so you're invoking some very powerful imagery, and it really shows that at the end of the day, Batman, despite all of his gadgets, his smarts, whatever, he's just a mortal man facing off against an alien with godlike powers.
And like Lex Luthor, he can't put together that someone with godlike powers would be purely benevolent.
Yeah, especially after witnessing the destruction between their fight. So it's like, the motivation is there. It's not a bad way to do it, but it doesn't carry through. Like,
And then there's Superman's side of this whole debacle. So why does Superman want to fight Batman?
because Superman apparently does not approve of Batman's vigilante methods. And then
Bit of a pop calling the kettle black there, but okay.
well, I mean, that's kind of how it was when they first met in the Justice League show, but
You're a vigilante. And you're not?
well, I think he also doesn't like the fact that Batman willingly kills people.
That's another thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later on when we talk about the Batman's version in the Snyderverse. But yeah, essentially, this grittier Batman actually kills people on the regular.
Which also, you killed two.
Yeah.
I watched Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
That was not a pacifying move.
Yep.
That was a kill move.
But then ultimately, Superman seeks out Batman's help when Lex Luthor kidnaps his mom. But Batman, still in his "I hate you, you are evil," blah 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 blah, fights him until he says the dreaded line, "Save Martha." And because their moms share the same name, that snaps Batman out of his hatred and wants to help Superman now.
Writing. You know, when was the writer's strike? That was several years after this.
Yeah, it was.
But it's like, I don't know if the writers weren't paid enough or if we paid way too much.
Probably overpaid.
This is why you always read the drafts before they get sent off.
Now, I have seen several people defend this moment and say that this is Batman realizing that Superman has some semblance of humanity in him because he was raised by a human, or his mom essentially raised him.
But
But
didn't we
that is
already know that?
that's actually a really good point. Is that this Batman really stinks as a detective?
I thought Batman had been like trailing. Where did this guy come from? Okay, he says Clark Kent. Clark Kent is from Smallville. Clark Kent has two parents, John and Martha Kent.
Yeah.
What is that? A Google search takes 10 minutes.
Yeah. So it's like, and also
Is he on Facebook?
Okay. Now we have talked about Batman for quite a bit now. So let's, you mentioned it. Let's jump back to Superman for a second. So in this whole movie, Superman is essentially doesn't know how much he can help humanity because humanity still hates. There are a lot of people that still hate him after the events of Man of Steel. But yet, a lot of people also see him as a god, as a savior, and whatever. So he's trying to find his place in the world.
He's trying to find that middle ground.
Fair enough. That's a good, logical step. And then he goes to a court hearing about events that happened in the start of the film, where he rescues Lois Lane from a militia group. And actually one of the people from Man of Steel actually goes up to testify against him, and then his wheelchair blows up because Lex Luthor rigged it as a bomb, and Superman just stands there as the wheelchair explodes, and the whole courtroom is dead.
We will get to why this is bad when we talk about the next movie, because he does appear in Justice League, so we gotta talk about that.
Yeah. We'll probably go over a little bit over an hour, but that's okay. And then his whole rationale for not stopping the bomb was because he couldn't see it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in Man of Steel and in this movie, they have not gone over the fact that Superman can't see through lead.
I mean, he can't see through lead, but I don't think it was ever mentioned.
Yeah, so it's like, if it was never mentioned, how would Lex Luthor know that?
Also, Lex, puts a little joke in the room to be sent to... There's apparently a part earlier in the movie where he's talking to this woman who is in the court hearing, and says, and she says, don't give me pee and say it's lemonade.
Yeah.
And she's drinking, or she has lemonade in front of her, and she turns and it says Lex's lemonade or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, boom!
Yep.
And it was like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
And then...
Really, Lex?
The biggest problem with Superman in this movie naturally doesn't really have anything to do with Superman by himself. It's a story that features Superman. So, because, as a backup plan in case Batman doesn't kill Superman, Lex Luthor somehow gains clearance into Zod's ship from Man of Steel, as well as the seizure of Zod's dead body, and essentially reanimates him into the monster called Doomsday. Which, for those of you that don't know...
We've officially jumped the shark.
Yes. Doomsday is the monster that is most famous in the Death of Superman story. In other words... Oh, and they go through with it. Doomsday fights Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. However, in the final and at the end of the battle, in order to stop Doomsday...
Because he's part Krypton.
Yep.
Kryptonian.
Superman grabs a kryptonite spear that Batman had and slams it into Doomsday. However, Doomsday also does a cheap shot and stabs Superman in the heart. This causes both of them to die. It's only his second movie, and you kill him.
Oops.
Ugh, why?
Also, while we're here, So the reason that they need to use the spear is because it's the only thing that's going to kill the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bruce is just a human at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
We're like 99% sure he's just human. He does a lot of weird stuff in the comics. I'm not entirely sure there's not something going on there. Maybe it's those weird Tibetan monks.
Who knows?
But he's just human. So it's gotta be Superman, right? Except Wonder Woman's right here. Wonder Woman has proficiency with spears.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not weak to kryptonite.
Yeah.
And also, it gets even worse after Wonder Woman's movie came out just a little later. Because in that movie, we learned that only a god can kill a god. And she kills Ares, who is a god. Therefore, she's a god.
Yep.
Which means Doomsday can't kill her. So why was this a...
And then they have a state funeral for Superman. He's given full military honors, which, I mean, the sequence itself is actually pretty well shot and pretty well done. So I will say props to Zack Snyder. He can do great shots of action and stuff very well. But again, you spent almost the entire movie talking about how the world does not like Superman or questioning his place in the world, and the military does not like him being here. And then he has full military honors. Make up your mind. Anyway.
That was Batman v Superman.
Oh, but we also forgot. As well as Wonder Woman's appearance, Bruce also stole some digital files from Lex Luthor, which contains the origins or glimpses of the other Justice League members, including Aquaman, The Flash, and Cyborg.
I'm sorry, Cyborg will always be a Teen Titan to me.
Yeah, Cyborg wasn't actually a founding member of Justice League. He was a founding member of Justice League in the New 52.
It's because they were afraid of Green Lantern.
Even though
they didn't want to bring... Even though he's in the opening...
Yeah.
He's right there with everyone else.
Mm-hmm. But, nope. Alright, so with all that out of the way, let's talk about Superman in the Justice League movie.
Which we won't have to talk about much, because it is... We start off, Superman's dead, and Steppenwolf, sent by Darkseid, is here to conquer the planet.
Yep.
So Batman gets the rest of the Justice League members together because we don't have a Superman. So all of them are here to fight Steppenwolf.
Yep.
And then they get the idea to resurrect Superman. Which, if that was the plan, if that was a possibility, why didn't we start with that? Anyway, so Superman gets woken up from the dead, like you do, and he's a bit cranky after his nap.
I mean, wouldn't you? Especially when you saw the man that was trying to kill you from the previous movie.
And then we get a scene that really makes Batman v Superman not look good in hindsight, where Flash is running around trying to outmaneuver Superman, and Superman is faster than him.
So, to set the scene though, Superman is actively fighting Aquaman, Cyborg, and Wonder Woman in front of him. Flash tries to get the jump on him by running behind him at supersonic speed. But Superman just turns his head and therefore shows that he can see him, even though he's running at supersonic speed.
So, when it comes to the bomb scene from Batman v Superman, everyone who's seen the X-Men First Class movies goes, okay, so either Flash is infinitely slower than Quicksilver is, or Superman could have stopped the bomb. Or Superman could have just gotten everyone out of the courthouse.
Yeah. There's just like...
And just... Guess not.
Well, it's like... it's like, again, the whole point of that movie was that you couldn't see the bomb. Could you not hear the gears ticking, or use your X-ray vision to see that the wheelchair is
There's
somehow...
mysterious ticking sound.
Yep. Snape. Severus Snape.
I found it. It's a pipe bomb.
That is oddly relevant to what we're talking about. But yeah, so... Yeah, and then he sees Flash and actually throws Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Aquaman away, and is able to keep up with the Flash while he's keeping up supersonic speed. And then he sees Batman, the man that wanted to kill him in the last movie. And he grabs him by the throat and says, "You won't let me live, you won't let me die. What would you want me to do?" And he's like, you had to stop us. It's like, and then he gives, this was Batman's line in the previous movie, but Superman says it to Batman, and he's like, "Tell me, do you bleed?" And it's just like, you know what? That was well deserved after what you did to him.
But it's also way too serious for him.
Yeah. But then ultimately, Lois comes out and, he gets his memories back, and he agrees to fight against Steppenwolf and Darkseid's forces, and they save the world, and then they decide to form a team in case this were to happen again.
Like you do.
Yeah. So there was a little bit of controversy surrounding this film because Zack Snyder actually stopped directing this movie for a very sad reason. Ultimately, his daughter killed herself, and he decided to step away to deal with all that and to be with his family. And Joss Whedon, who was riding on the success of the previous two Avengers movies, stepped in to finish off the movie. However, those two have very different styles. So when you're trying to be overly serious and gritty with Zack Snyder, but then have a little bit of a comedic edge or comedic comic relief with Joss Whedon, a lot of times the scenes didn't really mesh very well.
So you've got scenes from Joss Whedon, like Aquaman's confession about his actual feelings while sitting on top of the lasso of truth, or
it's like, "What's your superpower? I'm rich."
Or Alfred's, "It seems like you have a date. About time someone around here did."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're good lines, but in the universe we've been introduced to, they don't really fit.
Yeah, it's like again, the styles don't really seem to mesh well, and ultimately this kind of. And then there was rumors about a Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League movie, which Warner Brothers said it didn't exist, but then cast members said it did, some said it didn't. Ultimately, Zack Snyder, the Justice League cut was released back in, I think in 2021 or 2020, somewhere around there. And while it was better,
it had a more coherent plot.
Yes. But the big problem, it was over 4 hours long.
And this is not Lord of the Rings.
This is not Avengers Endgame. It didn't need to be that long.
This can all be summarized as trying way too hard, way too fast. Because they wanted to bank on the success of Avengers and get all their heroes in one movie, or in two movies.
Mm-hmm.
And you just can't go that fast.
Yeah. It's like, the reason why the MCU worked was because they took their time, they introduced each member by itself, and then they brought them all together. Whereas this one, they introduced a core character, Superman, and then they introduced Batman and Wonder Woman in the next movie, with hints of Cyborg, Aquaman, and The Flash in that also same movie. And then they had Suicide Squad in between then, which introduced a whole other cast of characters, which unfortunately we can't really talk about it on a family-friendly podcast. And then they introduced the Justice League.
But compare that to how Avengers did it. So we had the Iron Man movies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Iron Man. We introduced Coulson.
Mm-hmm.
And we introduced Nick Fury.
Yep.
And Black Widow. But not all in the same movie. They were spread out.
Yep.
Okay. Thor gave us a little bit more Fury. And Barton.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else got their own movie.
Yep.
So we went in, we were like, oh, I know that person.
Mm-hmm.
But in Justice League, it was like, who is this? Oh, that's that electric guy from that scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's like, oh, there's that fish dude. Okay. So yeah, it's just like, that's ultimately the biggest problem with the DCEU is that the writing, first of all, it was too dark, too cynical. The writing wasn't great, but also they were just trying to rush to get to the finish line.
And also, let's talk briefly about the people we went to collect to fight off against Darkseid's invading force. Okay, we got Batman, which we got to have him. He's the one that started this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we don't have Superman until we revive him. We have Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful goddess / demigoddess.
Mm-hmm.
Good pick. Flash, super fast, faster than most. Okay. Aquaman. I mean, he's stronger than your average man, but I don't know what you expect him to do. Unless we go to the ocean, I think we're kind of pulling our punches here.
Yeah.
Cyborg. Not a bad pick.
Yep. Especially now that they added this new power of his where he can communicate with machines via touch or something.
And that's it.
The only other person that could have been a really good pick in this fight, they haven't introduced yet. Green Lantern.
Any of the Green Lanterns.
Nope. You could have
Actually, that's the whole thing of we're dealing with interplanetary stuff. Where are all the aliens?
Yeah.
Where's the Lantern Corps? Where's Martian Manhunter when you need him?
Well, apparently in the Zack Snyder cut, one of the generals was actually revealed to be Martian Manhunter.
I do not remember this.
So, anyway, we kind of gone over the allotted time here, but that is essentially all of the... We haven't seen the newest Superman movie, as well as Supergirl that's supposed to come out, I think...
But from the scenes that I've seen, online, it looks good.
Same, yeah, it looks really great. It kind of looks like it's actually going back to Christopher Reeve's Superman, but we'll let you know what we think. All right, well, that's all we have for this episode of Justice League June.
Join us next week when we do our first episode on Batman.
We're going to be focusing on the Keaton and Others era we're going to be talking about the Michael Keaton's Batman movies, Val Kilmer, and George Clooney.
What about Adam West? That's not technically a movie, but still.
We'll mention it, but essentially we'll be focusing on those four. All right, well, we'll see you next time.
Bye.